Hey, everybody, we are going to work on one of my favorite topics, journaling through trauma. Now, this is a class that I normally give out into the community, and so I'm going to give it to you as a quick kind of run through. Um, it is, it is, what can I say about it? It is informative, and it is another tool where you can utilize your own time, your own privacy, and just kind of start working through things without having to have a huge, I don't know, a huge shift in that. So when we look at journaling through trauma, it's really journaling out of trauma. Usually at the end, we bring out examples and things like that. I won't be doing that in this particular item. One of the things that I always remind people about is, right, you should always see a doctor. This is not medical advice. So there's the item there. But trauma is something that we let go of. So there is a very big difference between a traumatic event and trauma. So that's the part where I'm really talking about, is that the events that have happened in your life, those are real events. And we see these events in a variety of ways that I think I'm going to give you the definition of trauma, and I think it's really helpful. But it's something that we let go of. And the reason that I bring this up, and why do I bring this up as a math geek? Why do I bring this up as a business person? Is because we see trauma in business a lot. We see a lot of people who have not solved their trauma, trying to work through business ideas, and they're not kind of getting it. So this is a way to go, okay, why are we talking about this? Well, these are also ways to get rid of poverty mindsets. It's also a way to get rid of unhealthy habits. And it's a way to kind of work through emotional traps. And when you're going through here, one of the things that's really helpful is if you see something that's interesting, you can just screenshot it. And it's a video, so you can watch it again. So, but again, the whole goal is that we're really trying to find meaning and have positive life change. That is the number one reason why journaling can help discharge trauma, is because it's a tool. It's a tool to help you get through that. So even if it's happened a long time ago, there are many steps that you can take to overcome pain. And a lot of times I see it in business is learning how to trust people again, or finding a sense of emotional balance. And the way we can start that is with just starting a simple journal entry. And we see this a lot for those people who are managing addiction, that addiction has been shown to be that that it is based in pain, and pain for most people is trauma. But what we're talking about today is mindful isolation. It's taking that time, taking 20 minutes to really just go in and take some seclusion, do it alone, and being able to understand your own fundamental truth. That is the key item. If I were going to take a screenshot of something, this is it. It is taking time to be with your own fundamental truth. And that fundamental truth is sometimes different from where you are today versus what you are in the past. So when we think about this definition, this is the one I would screenshot, is that not all traumatic experiences look alike. But it is any situation that leaves you feeling overwhelmed and isolated. That is trauma. Even if it didn't have physical harm, that it's really when we feel as though we were frightened and hopeless. The more frightened and hopeless you were feeling at that time, the more likely you are to be traumatized. And this is a subjective emotional experience. So you're the only one that knows. Nobody can say, wow, that wasn't it. It doesn't matter what someone else feels is their trauma. This is about you and you moving forward in a healthy, thoughtful, loving way. And again, I keep putting this slide up for a reason, because trauma is something that we have to let go of. It is that feeling. And that's where journaling really comes in. And people hold a lot of daily trauma. They hold it in, like, here's just the list off the top of my head, right? money, relationships, toxic people, health issues, shame, blame, imposter syndrome, not enough time, undirected, depression, right? Not enough resources. Sometimes you're just lonely. Sometimes you're angry. Sometimes you're in an unhealthy relationship. We all have daily trauma. And sometimes that adds up and we start getting, right, anxious. And sometimes we get anxious about time. We see a lot of people get anxious about where they think they should be in their life around their birthday. We see people get really anxious about how much their business is doing around September of every year. We feel people getting anxious at the beginning of the year when they don't feel they have enough money on the books. We see trauma in lots of ways. We see it in people who have views on their body. We see it on people who have views around addiction. Maybe they're parenting addiction. Maybe they are married to someone who has an addiction. That there is anxiety about time. It's not moving. And that feeling of it's not moving is really when you should pick up a journal, because that is the way that you can instantly in 20 minutes take a breath, sort your ideas, and kind of get some of those ideas down. So you can start right now. You can start today. I'll give you a couple of journal prompts and kind of go over some of the other ways. It only needs 15 or 20 minutes, and you can pick your journal style. You don't have to be like, dear journal, how are you today? We're going to give you kind of some dump styles, some letter styles, some query styles, and show you how other people are working through trauma. It's not just a gratitude journal, but that's one other kind. So you're going to start to look at what is for you. I use a lot of different tools. Sometimes I use a 3x5 card. Sometimes I use a burning technique. You will find what works for you. And again, you only need 15 or 20 minutes of your time. And that is kind of the magic, right? That if you just have 15 or 20 minutes, it's enough. It's enough. It's enough. When we go to the next topic, expressive writing. Expressive writing is, I love it because of what it does for your brain. It also helps strengthen your immune system. Those are real scientific conversations that are out there. Of expressive writing is, right, where you really kind of write your feelings down. I am angry about this, and this is why, right? So it is expressive writing in general as a whole topic is a big deal. I put this picture up because some of the ways that many of you will use your expressive writing is probably through artistic expression. So even if you are just called to draw something, it still works. It still does the same thing. And your goal is, again, to find meaning in and have a positive life change. So when you're looking at those questions, you really have to change the narrative. You can't keep repeating the old narrative over and over and over again. So, and to do that, writing is really helpful. You have to kind of write out a new way to see the narrative. So, and that's also sometimes processing a stressful experience, which is giving it a new narrative. And a new narrative is to sometimes just writing yourself as a hero, writing yourself as someone who didn't have control, as opposed to these bad things happened to me and now I am bad. It is to really start to understand your world a little differently. And when I think about that, changing the narrative, especially for people who have had a failed business or had a lawsuit or have had things that negatively impacted their career, maybe they were fired, it is to really go back and gently, kindly, and lovingly look at the self that they were at that time and really try to understand themselves at that time. Maybe they were stressed. Maybe they did the best they could. Maybe it was an unthoughtful situation, but it's changing the narrative. And that's what you're kind of why writing prompts work, is you can kind of look at it from a different way of kindness, of something that is not such a thrill ride, right? Kind of giving it as a narrative of hope. Sometimes I go back and go, how was this terrible thing that happened to me one of the most pivotal things that built the best person that I could be, right? How do I take something that was really, really negative and now reformat it in my mind to be a building block for something that is better. And again, we're looking for release, recover, reward. And the reward is that you get a new mindset. The reward is that you're going to have some conversations with yourself. And you're there. The purpose of journaling for this particular item, trauma, is to create a conversation with yourself. These are not free to share with other people. Nobody needs to read it. If you're worried about somebody reading what you have, set it on fire at the end of the time. We have another technique that we use where we use an artistic form called gesso, and we will just gesso over the pages and then put an art project over it. So you can write it and then like kind of cover it with something so nobody else can read it, but you can still have the pages. So there are many ways to do that. If you're worried that somebody's going to read your journal, just set them on fire at the end. You don't have to keep them. Your mind will reprogram it. So when you're looking at creating a conversation with yourself, this is 10 ways. So you can kind of just take a snapshot of this with your phones of, how can we get at this? Dot journaling is interesting. Sometimes I will pre-mark a page to go, I need this to talk about my dad. I need this to talk about my stepmother. I need this to talk about my sister, right? I need this to talk about so-and-so. I need this to talk about my parenting, my step parenting, right? So sometimes I'll just pre-mark pages to go, yeah, I got trauma in all of these things, right? So let's work on that. And sometimes it's not trauma. Sometimes it's grief that feels like trauma because that person was really special, or that you felt really isolated after the loss of that person. So grief can come into this, and it can come into, I had a business partner die. And I remember I was working with another business partner, and I was really focused on something. And he looked at me and he said, I'm not going to die. And I just, burst into tears to realize how much pain and isolation I'd had from having a long-term business partner die suddenly, and how it felt to bring that forward, and having another business partner notice it. So it was very interesting. So I sometimes just pre-marking your pages with a couple of ideas that are there. And we'll talk about some of the ways to do that. So you're connecting the physical and emotional in that. So this is also where we also look at stress response, agitation, anxiety, flashbacks, upsetting thoughts, nightmares, re-experiences, triggering, right? That sometimes I don't realize the reason that I'm stressed is because I'm actually going back to something that was really painful to me. And having my business blow up because my partner died in his 50s. He was 54. Wow, that nobody expected that. And I was, in my 40s. So that felt really uncomfortable. Another tool that I see people use is gratitude journals. And what I like about a gratitude journal as a lightweight option, it's a fast way to kind of get near a trauma journal, but close, is to start changing that response, that physical response when we are connecting to the brain. If we've been, if you or I have spent a lot of time in one brain of thought, your brain starts to go, oh yeah, we're going this way now. Gratitude journals change that they start kind of getting rid of stinking thinking or fear thinking, or worry thinking, and gives another response to the brain. It's just that happy thoughts of cognition. Notice all the things that you've wanted in your life, right? Danielle Laporte is another person that I really enjoy in business. So she's a little bit in your face. She doesn't always, I think she still swears too. So that's fun. Another just kind of one-day tool that is helpful in that is to take any small response, something that's a smaller trauma, not a huge big one, but something that's a smaller one, and just for fun, retell yourself the story of that day with you as the hero. And you start to get new senses and new memories of what was there. So you may you may rewrite it. So one of the things that I was really traumatized about, that I felt just so much pain over, was daycare. Trying to get my kids from daycare as a single parent, and getting there on time, getting there through a snowstorm, getting there through traffic, and I working for other people at the time. That's the number one reason I went to work for myself, was because it was so traumatic trying to do it all, trying to earn all the money, be the primary caregiver, get my kid from school on time, and go back and make dinner, and then maybe I didn't finish my work or whatever. It was just traumatic. So I had to kind of start to retell the story as a hero. But being locked in traffic in a snowstorm, knowing that your kid is standing on the street corner in the inner city, is just traumatic. I still don't like it. I still don't like traffic. So I always invite people to drive me. But I'm over I can let go of the trauma as I age. And that's the key of this, is to let go of the trauma. The hero self for young people, that is a critical part to their self-esteem and to their discovery. And it's a critical part for you. We need heroes. This is a hero conversation. So, the reason that I like retelling yourself as a hero is because it's helpful. The one sentence ask. These are the fast pages. I love one sentence asks. What is bugging me now? Why is this bugging me now? Why am I always annoyed with? It's just a one sentence ask, and it's usually a, who, what, why, how. But it's usually a who, what, right? What is bugging me? These are fast, but when I'm starting to feel tension for myself, this is a trick that I usually do on a 3x5 card, where I'll just give myself a one sentence ask. I'll stop in the middle of the day to try to break whatever overwhelm that I have. And then I'll be like, why am I overwhelmed right now? And then I just let everything flow out. And then I look at it. And a lot of times it's like, oh, I have too many tasks and I'm feeling out of time. Let me figure out how to fix that. So a lot of times a one sentence ask will kind of help you stop the ramping up of anxiety and start to give you just a minute to think of it. This particular one, Dear Little Me, this is really a journal style of writing a letter to your younger self. Sometimes people will use these as soul pages, where they write a letter to their soul or their higher self. But it is ridiculously helpful when if you have someone who has had a very tumultuous relationship with parenting, or family styles that weren't really embracing, that these are ways to kind of write a letter to your younger self. The first time I did this, I went, oh my gosh, I can't even do this. A therapist gave me this as a tool to go write a letter to your younger self. And I thought, oh boy, and I cringed at the thought. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I had to tell myself all of the things that I had to get through to get to be here, I don't think they'd feel happy about it. I think they would go, wow, that's a terrible path. This is awful. But it was really helpful. The first time it was daunting to me. And I've done it many times since. I've seen other people do it in other ways that felt a little more playful, a little more loving, a lot more generous, that they just were really loving intention. And then when I went back to do it for myself, going back with that intention of just loving that little spirit that was me, trying to get through all of these really complex things, I just was very thoughtful, and I could kind of push my mind into possibility, and I could go back and reprogram how helpful it would have been as a young person had I thought of the fact that there were other possibilities than what I saw in front of me. And so, Dear Little Me, I'll be fascinated to see if you choose it. It was really powerful to me. Taking a raw moment. This is really one of those one question asked. What do I never need to be judged on again? What's the thing about me that I don't want anyone to ever judge me on again? And what happens with this question is it allows you to just raw anger, kind of like I don't need to be judged on, blah, 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 blah. And what that does is it illuminates the things that are kind of bugging you, but you don't really reach at because they're not in your face. So I love this question. It is a single question ask, and it is there to be raw. It's there to kind of be hard and edgy. This is another one that I really like. And it's really looking at the aspects of yourself differently. It's saying, it's writing about yourself as the third person. What does my guilty self feel? This one really does allow you to build compassion for the person that you were. So you really take it from another angle, right? So you'll be looking at, how does this feel, and how do you ask questions in a way that allow your inner compassionate companion to respond. It's really helpful. In those fast pages, you can also take them positively. In those one question asks is, right, what are people positively saying about me and why? You know, who's speaking nice about you? A lot of times I'll say to people, oh, hey, I was talking nicely about you behind your back. Here's what we were talking about. And people are like, oh, you talk nicely about me behind my back? That's great. So sometimes we don't always realize that we are doing that. The second part to this is to really look at how often you are talking nicely about other people. So, you know, are you actually bringing that language forward so that you are talking about people and how great they are? That if you are not cheerleading anyone, it's really hard to cheerlead yourself too. So if you're cheerleading other people, it's a lot easier to cheerlead yourself. In a fast page, right, this is again a fast page, it's a one question ask. What makes me feel loved and cared for? This is very, very primal. And I like it as a one question ask. That what I found out of that is that it's really a lot easier for me to feel loved than I thought. I'll be interested to see what you pick, because sometimes loved and nourished or cared for is sometimes just knowing that that you have the ability to love and that people can love you. And sometimes it is about safety and security. So sometimes it's real physical things that, like, the house is paid. So I'll be interested to see where you come from it. So definitely leave me a note about that. Another fast page, it's similar to gratitude, of reframing how you feel about something, but what are the resources I have in place right now? This is another one that if I were going to screenshot, this is one that's very compelling because it helps you add up what you have. And it's asking questions that are going to help you, right, retrain your mind. What are you going to do for you? And that's the big piece. Journaling is there as one single tool. It's one that I hope you'll pick up. We have some review hands-on sessions, but I just wanted to introduce you to the concept. Again, I'm going to go back to the very beginning. The purpose of this is mindful isolation, and it's really looking at those fundamental truths. That is what you are hoping to get out of it. And the second thing that I need you to take away for sure is understanding that trauma is subjective. So if you were frightened and feeling helpless, that's a real high likelihood that you were traumatized. So don't take someone else's idea on about trauma, but do take on this other approach that you're there to try to get into the fundamental truths about you and help yourself strengthen the ideas about you and your journey. And by doing that, it makes it so that the real life that you're living in the present is less agitated. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to remind you that I think you're great. Thank you for being with me today. And, you know, we have lots of tools here for you. So keep coming. All right. I'll see you later.